recorded in this computer. And we are recording. Wonderful. Okay, let me admit all.
Wait, how does this work? Oh, I can. Hello.
Oh, Elaine, do you have ability to admit people?
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Let me
Okay.
click everyone in.
Amazing.
Wait, is that notification gonna? Maybe I should put my AirPods in. Oh.
Ding dong. Hi, everybody. We're gonna wait for like the next 3 minutes, just to wait for people to trickle in, and then we'll start from there.
Christy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Whoa.
Hello, this webinar will be recorded. So don't worry if you have to leave early. We'll also be sending the slide deck out. So no worries if you miss something or go over something too quickly. It'll be sent out in the slide deck.
Whoa. Hey, Berju.
Hi, Berju. Let me change my name.
All right, let's wait for like a minute more and then we can get started.
Okay. Okay,
cool. I think we got people start trickling in.
Do you want to just admit people while I'm talking?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm just like spamming the button.
I should just make Berju a co-host too, just in case.
Oh yeah, that problem.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be recording it, and I'm not sure where we're gonna publish it yet, and probably will be up on our Twitter, on our Facebook, and on our YouTube. So just look out for it there, but we'll let you know. Not too sure yet. Okay, so I'm gonna start talking just to introduce the workshop, introduce us. And at any point throughout this workshop, feel free to interrupt us with any questions at all in the chat box, or you can just speak up too. You're totally welcome to do that. So, oh my goodness, these waiting room pings are so distracting.
Yeah, I have no idea how to.
Okay. Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thanks for coming through to our introduction to blockchain technology and industry overview. We are she256. We're a diversity and blockchain nonprofit breaking down barriers to entering the blockchain space by broadening the pipeline through increasing accessibility to industry professionals. Yeah, our mission statement. We're doing this workshop in collaboration with Rewriting the Code, which is an amazing organization for college women in tech. But we're also opening up our audience to anybody who wants to be here. We're so lucky to have you. Thanks for coming by. Okay. Yeah, so let's, a quick overview of our agenda tonight. Elaine will be running through an introduction to blockchain and the technology. I'll be going over some more of the industry overview with relation to DeFi, use their own platforms, some of the more buzzwordy terms that you've maybe heard. And then we'll talk about the she256 community and a beginner's guide, and then do an open Q&A at the end. But as always, feel free to interrupt us with any questions throughout in the chat or just speak up. Okay, yeah, so my name's Christy. I lead operations at she256. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently a student at UC Berkeley.
And I'm Elaine. Nice to meet you guys. I am a designer for she256, but I also led Blockchain, which is an education program in the past for she256. Cool. So let's get started. I'll be leading you guys through introduction to blockchain. We're going to start off with some really basic general definitions of concepts around crypto and blockchain. So first, what is a cryptocurrency? So a cryptocurrency is a digital currency, nothing physical about it. You can't touch it, you can't taste it. It isn't issued by any central authority. So there is no bank or like the feds, no one's regulating this. And it is made secure with cryptography, distributed consensus, and incentive alignment. So basically what this means is it's made secure with math. There's a way for the community to come to an agreement together without someone centralized telling you what is right and wrong. And there's a use of game theory to make sure that the network stays healthy as a whole. I know that this is a very abstract concept. These are very abstract concepts. We're definitely gonna, solidify them as I keep going, so don't worry. And Bitcoin is an example of a cryptocurrency. Oh, before I go any further, I strongly recommend you guys to try to develop your own intuitive for what these definitions should mean, because by no means is this the correct definition. Everyone kind of explains it differently. For this specific definition, credits go to Blockchain at Berkeley. I thought they did a really good job of kind of really bringing the essence to a basic definition. But yeah, so as you keep going on your blockchain journey, I highly encourage you to try to develop your own definitions. Okay, then what is, blockchain, what we've been waiting for? So blockchain is the data structure that's used to represent cryptocurrency. It's kind of like the engine to the car. It's a way that allows us, this specific data structure allows us to store data in such a way that multiple parties can access it without having to lay trust in any other party. In other words, blockchain can be described as a distributed ledger. Ledger is basically an English word that means database, and distributed means that there is no centralized, point of authority. Instead, it's spread out and shared to everyone on the network. This ledger, this database, everyone can have a copy too. If you want to join the network, then you can have this database, and every single transaction that has happened within this network is stored on this database. So what this means is that if I'm looking at Bitcoin, which is an example, a use case of blockchain, all the transactions that has happened through Bitcoin, I can see, anyone can see. Okay, so yeah, remember so when people say crypto is decentralized, it's because blockchain is also decentralized and crypto runs on blockchain. So that's why. I've been throwing around centralization and decentralization a lot. And while I think it's good to take some time to try to solidify the concepts of centralization and decentralization within the scope of blockchain and cryptocurrency. So first of all, centralization. Does anybody want to volunteer and define centralization for us? I have no idea. I don't know how to do this. Okay, I'll just keep going. I'll assume that, wait, is someone volunteering?
Oh, I can volunteer. Sorry, there's also
Okay,
cooking
cool.
in the background. I wasn't expecting to talk. Centralization is when you can like point to a person who's actually actively controlling everything, and they have like more than majority influence or direction.
Yeah, perfect, precisely. That's exactly what centralization means. So authority is held, I also realized that there's like a definition that I put up on screen, but authority is held by a single and central party, meaning that they have, the right and the power to control all the data that's produced on the network, as well as make changes on this network. An example would be, Facebook, that big middle dot right there would be, Facebook as an org, and the small dots next to it would be all the users. The good thing about this structure is that the advantages is it's very easy to update and it's very efficient. So if Facebook wanted to make any changes, they all just need to get confirmed within, Facebook as an org. However, it comes with really big disadvantages as well, such as if Facebook as an org goes down, then the entire network will be down and compromised. If Facebook's database is hacked, that means everyone's data, privacy and data would be compromised, which means there's one point of failure. And you see that could be a really big issue. Also, the small points around that big node, everybody else except for the one holding power lacks sovereignty to their data. So you don't have, although you are producing the data on Facebook as a network, you don't have full control over the data that you are producing for them. So then decentralization. Does anybody want to volunteer and define decentralization? Okay, cool. Oh, wait, never mind.
I was going to say, it's the opposite of centralization.
I can
Thank you,
kind of
Christy.
give like, are the participants able to volunteer and like give definitions?
Yeah, go for it.
So my understanding, my name's Natisa Brooks, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
Basically, like, nice to meet you all too. Like the currency that we currently use is basically centralized by like the government, politicians, banks. The decentralized network, there isn't like one entity or one person that's controlling it. It's amongst I believe it's like the developers or whoever are like staking on that particular like platform or like crypto environment.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what it is. So on a decentralized network, there is no central point of authority, like you just mentioned. Instead, the data and the power is shared democratically amongst, all the network participants. So the authority itself is, distributed according to an openly known like rule that's in agreement with the entire network. So the data produced on this network, it's stored by all the participants. So you have power over your own data, and we don't have a single point of failure. If one of these nodes on this graph that we see here, if one of these are compromised, or if one of these go down, then that doesn't automatically translate to the entire network going down. It just means that that one node is now tampered, or that one node is now unhealthy. The network as a whole is still viable, which means we have this concept called fault tolerance. However, this type of network does come with some big disadvantages. It's very inefficient. It's very difficult to update. So because we don't have one person making all the decisions or one entity making all the decisions, all the changes happening on this network have to be agreed upon by everybody else, which means it's going to take a lot of time and power. So yeah, by no means is blockchain the right answer to all use cases. There are definitely good and bad use cases because of these limitations. Okay, cool. Do we have any questions so far? Okay, I'm gonna keep pushing because I do have a time limit. So okay, I'm gonna keep checking on, but feel free to just speak up. Okay, then what is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin is the original blockchain use case actually. Before Bitcoin, there was no cryptocurrency. There was no backtracking a little bit. Bitcoin is the original use case for the original use of blockchain, and it was published, deployed 2008 by an anonymous group called Satoshi Nakamoto. That's when the Bitcoin white paper was produced. And before then, there was no digital currency that was successful in terms of being able to be completely decentralized, have proper secure peer-to-peer transactions without a single point of failure, and also have the entire network be self-sustainable. So yeah. And what I mean by peer-to-peer transactions is that people are capable of making direct one person to other person transactions. So a good analogy, not a good analogy, but analogy a lot of people used for this was Venmo. So if I have someone's Venmo ID, then I can send them money directly. But in this situation, what's not accurate? What about this analogy is not correct in terms of this being analogous to blockchain? Does anybody volunteer? Or Christy, do you want to volunteer?
Maybe because Venmo is still backed up to the financial institutions while Bitcoin is independent of any like bank systems.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. So there's something about Venmo that is still controlled by a central authority, that financial institution. But yes, and Venmo is also controlled by Venmo itself. So although I am making one-to-one person transactions, all my transactions are being monitored and verified and tracked by Venmo as a central company, which is why it is a good but not a great analogy. And the motivation for creating a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin was a cypherpunk movement that fought for privacy and self-governance. So yeah, cypherpunks and crypto anarchists, there were libertarian groups that advocated for again privacy and self-governance, and they thought that using cryptocurrencies would be a good way to do so. So if we take a look at this quote from the Cypherpunks manifesto published in 1993, they define privacy as as the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. Okay, cool. So at this point, does anybody want to give an interpretation of this quote? Okay, Christy, please give me an interpretation of this quote.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what you're asking by that question, but the statement is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world, as in they want the ability, I think, the ability for every person in that network to have control over their own data and their own information, and not kind of be at the whims of whatever central platform that is dictating their holds control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Precisely. So if we take a moment to kind of reflect on how we do transactions right now, let's say that I want to buy something on Amazon. Then what happens? I make an account. I put in like my phone number, I put in my name, I put in my birthday, my address, and then later on I put in my credit card information in order to make a transaction. So yes, I am choosing to give Amazon all this information, but I have no choice. If I want to make transactions online, right now I have to give organizations really sensitive data about myself, assuming that sensitive information means that I am claiming who I am to be in order to participate in any transaction. So it's different from this quote. I don't have the power to select or reveal myself, because in order to have these transactions, I have no choice but to be revealed. Questions? Cool. So which is why privacy, they're claiming that in order to have privacy in an increasingly technological world, it's really important to be able to do transactions anonymously, while keeping your private information to yourself. Cool. So Bitcoin basically was able to decentralize currency. It gave us a way to do these transactions privately and do them securely, just the way we might interact with a bank, but while keeping power to ourselves and having things still be transparent. So how did things really change? Bitcoin doing monetary transactions through Bitcoin versus doing things through a bank. We're gonna look at three big things. First is identity. Second is the way we do record keeping, and third is how we come upon decisions. Cool. Okay, identity. So for thank you, I appreciate that. So for identity, the way we identify ourselves in the current centralized organization model is, again, we give them a lot of private information, assuming that if someone knows your private information, they must be who you're claiming to be. Of course, there are flaws to that statement, as we've seen on multiple, you can get hacked, people can know your information, all that stuff. But that is the way we do identify ourselves on most centralized platforms. Versus for Bitcoin, on a Bitcoin network, for any network that is supported by blockchain, we have public and private keys. So public and private keys, you can kind of think about it as the public key being your mailbox address, and your private key being your key to open that mailbox. So if someone wants to send me money, like on Venmo, if someone knows my ID, which is Elaine Lames, if someone wants to send me money to Elaine Lames, then I will enter in my password and I'll be able to access all the money that has been sent to me. Just like that, if someone sends money to my public key, then I can open it and access that money, access those funds with my private key. Cool, but we just talked about how things are anonymous. So how does public and private keys make things anonymous? Now the analogy would be like a Reddit ID, As long as I don't tell people, on the network that my Reddit ID is I'm a potato, no one is going to know that I'm a potato is Elaine Kim in real life, unless I tell Christy that, hey, I'm a potato on Reddit, and everything you see as I'm a potato is Elaine. So it's pseudo-anonymous in that sense. It's anonymous as long as I don't tell anybody on the network that my public key is something. Just because someone sees a public key doesn't mean that they know who this person is in real life, unless I decide to tell someone specifically that my public key is this in order to have a direct transaction. So you can already see that there's a very clear difference between making a transaction on a centralized network like Amazon versus making a peer-to-peer decentralized transaction on Bitcoin. My private information is kept to myself. No one knows who I am unless I choose to reveal myself. Okay, one big thing I do want to go over before moving on is that your private key should always be private. Your public key is meant to be shared. It's public by definition, but your private key must be kept to yourself, because if someone has access to your public key, that automatically means that they can have access to all your funds. Also, second thing, if you lose your private key, there is no reset password. You cannot ask someone to give you your password because there is no centralized database. If someone sent you like 5 Bitcoins 6 years ago because you were buying a fake ID in high school. There's no way for you to access that funds, which is a lot of money at this point, because if you lose your private key. Yes, I see your question. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I have a question. Who issues the public and the private key?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these public and private keys are actually the outputs of like a mathematical function. So there is no central identity making these public and private keys. Instead, if I want to make an account and that has Bitcoin in it, then I can automatically make a public and private key pair. It's just churned out. It's a mathematical equation basically. Which also, you bring me to a good point. I can make as many public and private key pairs as I want. So just because you're one person doesn't mean you have to have one public and private key. You can have as many as you want, as long as you are confident that you could keep track of all of them, right? You can remember and keep track of all of your public and private keys.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. Hey guys, I really appreciate you guys, speaking out. It's really helpful for me. So yeah, okay, moving forward.
Quick
so
question. Sorry, quick question back to the keys. So there are like instances now when people forget their like account info and blah, blah. So how do they restore it, or is there a way to restore? So yeah, you mentioned awesome. It's kind of impossible.
Yeah, it's not kind of, it is impossible. Unfortunately, a lot of people say that this is one of the biggest barriers to blockchain technology being widespread and commonly accepted because it is so difficult. There's a lot of responsibility given to the user. Right now, we're so used to being able to reset passwords. What's my username? But you can't do that on a blockchain network. You have to remember things yourself. So there are ways you could try to store these information. There are applications out there that will help you store this information, but ultimately that responsibility falls on you. And if you end up forgetting your private key, then yeah, you can't really do anything about it. There's no one can access those funds anymore. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So moving forwards, how is record keeping different on a centralized platform versus a decentralized platform? So how is record keeping different for a Bitcoin versus a bank? So for a bank, all the information is stored by the bank. All the transactions happening within the bank's network is stored by the bank in their centralized database. But we don't have that for blockchain. We do not have a centralized database where everyone's just sending all their data to. Instead, this big database is shared by everyone. Everyone has a copy of this database. Everyone can see this database. Whenever there is a change that needs to be made, every time someone makes a transaction, this transaction needs to be updated and added onto everyone else's database. Yeah, so changes are broadcasted, meaning that whenever there's a new update that needs to be made, people will be publicly announcing that this change has to be made, and thus everybody else will be updating their blockchain so that the view is consistent. To boil things down a little bit, picture it this way. You have 5 friends like we have on this picture, and each one of you guys have a notepad. Anytime one of you guys want to make a transfer of whatever units you're using, then everyone needs to write it down. So Alice pays Bob 5 units, you guys write it down. Bob pays Carol 2 units, you guys also write it down. Yeah, but you can see how this could be a little bit inefficient, right? If we're writing down one transaction at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to bundle them into groups. So we're going to create blocks of transactions. For the Bitcoin network, this usually means around 3,500 transactions per block. And we're doing this because if we try to update the network with one transaction at a time, we don't just have 5 people using Bitcoin, we have thousands and thousands. It's just gonna take a really, really long time. So bundling these transactions into a group together and then having everyone's blockchain update block by block is relatively more efficient than going one transaction at a time. Also, because we are bundling these blocks, these transactions into blocks and then chaining them onto previous blocks, hence the name blockchain. We also have a method of keeping a sequential order of transactions. So I can see what happened first, what happened after that, or what happened before.
I have a
question.
That
this is...
sorry to cut you off. So what can you see on these transactions? Because everyone can see it. What is being recorded on there? And then
Yes.
how detailed is it?
Thank you. That's a really great question. So high level, transactions are, from transaction from Alice to Bob. We want this information stored. What you're going to be seeing is Alice's public address, Bob's public address, public key, and the funds that's going. So literally everything is being shared. Every single transaction that is happening and everyone's identity on this network is being shared. But you see, that isn't an issue, because just because this information is being shared doesn't mean that you as a person is being compromised. Like, just because you're sharing, you seem to have, you're sending like 3 Bitcoins on to someone on the network and someone sees it. It's not like someone can barge into your house one day because they can see your house address or anything like that. They're just seeing your public key signatures and the funds that you are storing. But you remind me of something really cool that I do want to go over before I move on, is because we can see all the transactions that are happening and we can see who and the twos and froms, that also means that we can track where all your money is coming from. We can go all the way back to where we can track back and see who sent you this amount of money at what point of time and who you're sending that money to whom at one point of time. Yeah, I'm gonna keep going just because, oh, sorry.
Oh, just to confirm. So it just show what the amount. It doesn't say what, for example, in your bank transaction, you can see the store name and the item you're purchasing to that level of detail. But for this is just the amount that you're transferring or receiving.
Right, so let me try to clarify things a little bit. If Pizza Hut created a Bitcoin account, then Pizza Hut could have a public and private key. And you could send, if you have a transaction with Pizza Hut on blockchain, then people on the network will be able to see you sending money to a public key address. But then people won't be sure whether or not, those who know that that address is Pizza Hut's will know that you're doing a transaction with Pizza Hut. But everybody else, it just looks like you're this public key address is sending money to that public key address.
Elaine, you're doing amazing, but I just wanted to time check you real quick.
Oh my god. Okay.
You're doing amazing.
Guys, I'm sorry, but I will push forwards. Okay, third part. So because we don't, this was supposed to be about making decisions. But I'm calling it trustless consensus, and we'll see why soon. So because we don't have a central authority doing verifications, ensuring people that that people are behaving well, like on a bank, if they tell us that I have X amount of money and then I can't send this money to someone else, we just believe that that's true, and we put 100% trust in them. But we don't have this type of central authority on a Bitcoin network. So we're going to have to create a new way by which the network participants are going to come into agreement on state changes without having to put trust in one another. So without having to know each other individually. So how do we ensure that people are not spending money that they don't have the right to spend? And we're going to be achieving this with a combination of game theory and cryptography. So the goal is to make a network that is really expensive to cheat on, but profitable to act honestly. So if we ensure this, if this statement is true, then it means that participants can trust the network without having to trust individual participants in the network. So how does this happen? So we talked about how transactions are going to be added onto the blockchain and what type of data is going to be stored on the blockchain. But how do we verify these transactions, and how do we know which transactions to trust? So remember how we said every time a transaction is going to be made, we're going to be announcing it? So that's step one. You make a transaction with someone, that transaction is going to be announced to the entire network. What's going to happen next is people creating blocks, that bundles of transactions, are going to be collecting these transactions until they have enough to produce a candidate block. So this candidate block is only considered valid, and all the transactions within this candidate block is only considered valid when it is added on to the blockchain. So unless this transaction is not added onto the blockchain, we are not going to consider this a valid transaction. So how does this verification happen? What's going to happen? Clearly, I'm trying to speed up, and now I'm not communicating properly. But what's going to happen is users will be spending an immense amount of computation power to solve a puzzle. like, wow, what in the world does that mean? So people are going to be wasting their computer's electricity. They're going to make their computer do a lot of brute force computations to try to get a number correct, and try to get this number fit into certain constraints. A puzzle is a little bit misleading because it doesn't really require any intellect to solve this puzzle. We call it a puzzle because there is a right and wrong answer. So all the people who have everyone who has a candidate block ready, they're going to be competing with one another to find the answer to this puzzle. A good analogy to this puzzle would be, imagine you're standing across the room with a blindfold on and you have a dartboard in front of you and you have to get the bullseye. You're going to be doing that all day long and it's going to take a lot of energy, right? But that's what we want. So, but then once you get the answer correct, once you get that dart on that bullseye, then you, as the first person to get this puzzle correct, you have the right to broadcast your candidate block to everyone on the network, and that candidate block is going to be, updated on everyone's blockchain. By the way, proof of work, doing the dart throwing, spending the computation energy, this is what's going to be verifying all the transactions that's going to be within the block. Yes, I know that was really confusing. I strongly recommend you guys to go and read about it a little bit more. This is definitely a really difficult concept to grasp, but that is how transactions are going to be verified and added on to the blockchain. The people who are throwing all those darts, we're calling them miners. There are miners who are putting in the work, spending their computation energy to verify these transactions, and as payment for their efforts, if they get this puzzle correct, then they are rewarded Bitcoin. So you have a really big incentive to be doing this, right? Especially now, Bitcoin's worth so much. Yeah, cool. And also, if one thing before I keep going, if you get the puzzle right, your answer to this puzzle is your proof of work. So if you don't, this answer to this puzzle, it's really difficult to get, but it's easily provable in the sense that once you have the puzzle answer, then it takes like very little computation power to check whether or not your answer is correct. And having that correct answer is proof of the work you have done. Okay, so now we have a way to like kind of verify transactions in a block and have them added onto a blockchain. What if someone wants to cheat, right? What if someone wants to send someone money that they don't have? Well, what they would have to do is, if they want to have a fake transaction be added onto the blockchain, that means they would have to propose a block themselves and have this block be verified and added onto the blockchain themselves. But remember how we said that you can see public addresses as data points for a single transaction? Think about this as every time you make a transaction, you're signing it with your public key. And because you're signing it, this means that anyone who are looking at this data can double check and see if you have the funds to properly spend this money. So it's using cryptography, using math, it's very easy to check whether or not the transactions you're claiming to make is valid and can be done. And second, even if you end up wasting a bunch of computation power to propose a block, first of all, it's very expensive. And second of all, there is no guarantee whether or not you're going to be the first person to get that answer correct. So there's no guarantee that you're going to be rewarded for the energy that you're going to be put in. And any block that includes invalid transactions are going to be rejected by the network. So at this point, we have properly managed to create a system where it's very expensive to cheat, but profitable to act honestly. So you can trust the network without trusting everyone on the network. Cool. Okay, Ethereum. You guys must have all heard about Ethereum. What is really Ethereum? Bitcoin managed to decentralize currency. And the next question was, what else can we decentralize with blockchain, a data structure that allows us to create a trustless, decentralized network that can reach consensus? Like, what can we do? So Ethereum is a platform that lets us, it's a decentralized platform that lets us run code. And we're going to call this code smart contracts. So it's an infrastructure, its main purpose is not to be a currency. It's an infrastructure to run code. Think about it as a decentralized computer, that these computers come together to create one big supercomputer. So when people go like, hey, what's the price of Ethereum now? What you're actually referring to is Ether, not Ethereum as a network. Ether is the native currency to the Ethereum network. And it's what incentivizes people to run smart contracts. Just like the way we were giving miners Bitcoin, we were rewarding miners Bitcoin as an incentive to validate all these transactions, we're going to be rewarding people Ether to run their smart contracts. Cool. So what can you do with a smart contract? You can store, maintain data. You can enforce and execute agreements between two untrusting people. You can provide functions for other contracts. Basically, you can create really complex logic on blockchain that's going to run without people being involved. So you can, okay. For instance, if I don't trust my landlord, we can write up a contract that says, as long as I pay my dues properly each month, by the time my lease ends, I'm going to be receiving at least like 20% of my security deposit back. If I really don't trust my landlord, we can have that written in code and deploy it on the blockchain, and no one can really interfere with this code anymore. It's going to run, it's public, you can't really change it. So yeah. Okay, then how do we reach consensus on the Ethereum network? How do we come into agreement about the state changes that are happening on the Ethereum network? Just like Bitcoin, we're going to be using proof of work. People are going to be, giving out puzzle answers as proof that they have validated smart contract code transactions. And Ether is going to be rewarded as a method to incentivize people to do so. Wow, that was a lot. Again, I highly recommend you guys to take a double look. But just to recap a little bit, for both networks, identity, because they're all both on the blockchain, it's done through public and private keys, and record keeping done through the blockchain. Consensus is reached by proof of work. Thank you so much. I know you guys must have questions, but I'm really sorry. I'm going to pass it on to Chrissy for now. Yeah, Chrissy, let's go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elaine. That was amazing. Hopefully I can match your level of amazingness. Do you want to hit the next slide? Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
So I would have asked questions here, but we're running a little short on time. Feel free to ask them in the chat. Our amazing team members will try to answer them for you, or we can stay after 6 to answer as many questions as we can as well. Okay, so Elaine talked all about the blockchain technology and kind of just the more specifics about, what is a blockchain, but okay, but like fun and cool, but like, what are they actually used for? Why would you even want to use a blockchain? Like, why are we actually right now? Why are we excited about it? Next slide.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so Elaine mostly mentioned Bitcoin and Ethereum. These are kind of what we call public or permissionless blockchains, are kind of what I like to think about as like the default model of blockchain, where anyone can view and participate. There's no permission needed. There's no middleman, no censorship, all these good things that we talked about. And so the main 2 use cases that I think are the most exciting in kind of within the blockchain realm right now are decentralized finance, or DeFi, and user-owned platforms. Okay. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so decentralized finance, right? I don't know if you've heard of DeFi or decentralized finance, but we kind of think like in the US, like we have access to Venmo, we have access to Zelle, and it's really not that hard to spend money the way that, or like for us in the United States or in Canada or the Great Britain or in developed economies to spend money. So a lot of times we don't really think too much about the financial system, but if you kind of zoom out a little bit and you look at the scale of the world on a global basis, nearly 1 out of every 3 adults worldwide does not have access to a bank or a mobile money provider. And that's huge, because access to money is the first critical step in escaping poverty. But a lot of these developing economies often don't have the necessary financial or the governmental infrastructure to provide the reliable and accessible access to money. And if you do have access to money, sending money cross-border often takes multiple business days and costs a lot in terms of transaction fees. And yet one out of every 7 people on this planet relies on sending or receiving money to family back home via remittances. And even within our banking systems, like we learned very recently that brokers like Robinhood that claim to democratize finance can stop retail trading and forcefully close out their users' positions almost willy-nilly. And that's kind of huge. That's kind of a perfect advertisement for decentralized finance, where it's peer-to-peer, it's bankless, and it's decentralized. Okay, thank you. And because decentralized finance runs on the blockchain, all of this kind of logic and everything happening runs on code, which is super amazing, because now all of these protocols, all of these like different kind of apps on the blockchain can integrate with each other, because they're all open source, which is why they're called like DeFi money Legos. You can kind of stack them on top of each other to build new products like Legos. So for example, Compound, which is one of the biggest lending protocols in the DeFi space, is built on top of DAI. And DAI is a stable coin, or a non-volatile coin that's pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar. So it's not like, it doesn't fluctuate at crazy prices. And DAI is built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So that's a super simple kind of example of how these different protocols stack on top of each other. And over the years and over the months, these money Legos have kind of built up this incredible ecosystem of financial primitives like fiat on-ramping, wallets, payments, trading, lending and borrowing, like derivatives trading, lotteries, betting, like all sorts of everything that you really associate with our traditional banking system. A lot of really smart people have found ways to replicate on the blockchain in a decentralized way. And so that is honestly huge. And I'm super biased because that's kind of where I spend the most of my time exploring and researching. But that's one of the biggest use cases for blockchain now, and one of the largest kind of the most exciting places to be if you're into blockchain. Okay, next slide. Okay, so kind of the other use case that I mentioned was not only in finance, or like not only using blockchain to decentralize finance, but using blockchain to really decentralize everything from Spotify to Uber, insurance, Airbnb, Google Drive, art galleries, poker, venture capital, really like everything that you think of in the modern world that relies a central entity. Because like all of a sudden, when you have these mechanisms for people to come to agreement on things without needing a central facilitator, you eliminate the transaction fees and the transaction time and make it more efficient and flexible and transparent for all parties involved. So for example, with Audius is almost like a decentralized Spotify. They're a decentralized music streaming platform owned by the users. And that's huge because RAC, the EDM artist, tweeted a while ago that he only earns a couple cents per million streams on Spotify, just because so much of his earnings as an artist are taken out by the platform, by Spotify, and by recording labels and just everyone else in between. But when you have a platform that's peer-to-peer and doesn't have that centralized entity kind of taking a chunk out of your earnings, you're able to earn a lot more, and it really changed the game for ownership and monetization of your own assets. And that's why maybe if you've been on Twitter recently, you've heard about NFTs. I can definitely go into that as well, but I don't know if I have time to go into detail now, but feel free to ask questions about NFTs as well. Filecoin and Ipfs is essentially a decentralized Dropbox where data is stored on a peer-to-peer worldwide network instead of in one centralized place, so that there's no central point of failure in case Dropbox goes down. And just so many different use cases that are possible because of blockchain. And if you want to read this little purple section down there, that's a little explanation of how decisions are made on the platform. But essentially, each one of these platforms has their own governance token that people can use to vote on. People can use to vote on things. So the more of that governance token that you have, the bigger voting right that you have, if that makes sense. Okay, all right. Let me know if you have any questions, but now that we've talked a little bit about the public blockchain and kind of what I like to think as the default model of blockchain, we can talk a little bit more about private and permissioned blockchains. these are typically more enterprisey, where companies don't necessarily want all of their information out in public view, and they only have a select group of players involved, but they also still at the same time want that immutable record keeping, like Elaine mentioned, that's unchangeable, and they don't necessarily trust their counterparties. So that's really useful for things like supply chain, where each one of the parties on the supply chain doesn't necessarily trust each other, but they all want their data. They all want their data on an immutable record keeping system. Or healthcare and insurance data, where you don't want all of your information out in the public. Like, I don't want everyone to know what my latest doctor appointment was about, or like all of my health information out in public. But things like permission blockchains are seeing a lot of usage here, because it's essentially a lot more secure database. And so, for example, blockchains like Hyperledger or Quorum or Corda, they're built by big companies like IBM or SAP and JP Morgan, really used for these more big company enterprise applications. Okay. Let's see, do I have time? I do have time, amazing. Okay, so now that I've kind of talked a little bit about the different things that are kind of going on within the blockchain space and kind of the big use case sectors, a few things that if you're interested in kind of learning more about the space or want to know where the space is headed, these are a few things that I'm excited about and have my eye on. If anyone on the she256 team wants to drop what they're excited about in the chat, that'd be awesome. But so Ethereum, Elaine mentioned Ethereum running on the proof of work system for now, where all of that computation and consensus relies on like literal brute force, and it's very energy intensive. So the idea for Ethereum 2.0, which is like the next evolution of Ethereum, is to migrate it to a proof of stake system, where voting power is not dependent on how much like brute force power you have, but more on the amount of Ethereum that you have staked on the network. And so that is hypothetically cheaper, so a lot cheaper in terms of transaction fees for network fees, faster, and overall supposed to be better. So that's one of the things that a lot of developers are working on now to launch, and that I have my eye on. The other, or another kind of thing that I have my eye on is on these DeFi financial primitives, where there's so much innovation happening in the space. Crypto moves so quickly. It's super exciting to kind of watch the space evolve and develop on crypto Twitter, where most of that goes down. So a lot of improvement and really just innovation happening in DeFi. If you've been on crypto Twitter at all recently in the past 2 weeks or so, maybe you've heard of NFTs. Non-Fungible Tokens, aka, how do I explain this? So like Bitcoin or Ether or the dollar are all fungible. What does that mean? Like $1 that I have has to be mutually interchangeable with another dollar. Like each one of these items has to be mutually interchangeable. Somebody said in the chat, digital property rights. Yeah, that's pretty much essentially it, right? So I'm able to tokenize things that are not mutually interchangeable with each other, which is almost like everything that exists in this world, like art, cars, socks, blankets, insurance policies, really like everything that you can think of that is not mutually interchangeable with one another. You can tokenize and put on the blockchain, and all of a sudden you have ability to permissionlessly transfer and trade these assets on the blockchain as tokens. So you're able to kind of digitize and tokenize intellectual property, or like anything of that sort. That was kind of not a great explanation, but I'm happy to expand on it if anyone had any more specific questions. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so other than Bitcoin and Ethereum, we've also have other blockchain networks that exist like Polkadot. And each one of these blockchain networks have their own pros and cons and their own ecosystems. And better scalability solutions and things like that. So that's just kind of alternative ways or alternative ecosystems other than Bitcoin and Ethereum if you don't really like those two. So lots of innovation just happening like on all dimensions within the blockchain space. Okay. Okay, before I kind of go any further, did we have any questions for me or for Elaine in terms of DeFi or these are your own platforms or anything really of the sort? Okay. Okay. Okay, amazing. Somebody asked in the chat, how do you get started mining? Elaine, we can talk about that after we're done. I feel like that's a bigger topic. Okay, amazing. Wonderful. Okay, so that brings us to the topic of diversity and inclusion in the blockchain space. And you know, I was kind of working on this slide deck and I was like, I don't know how to express what I feel and what I think about diversity and inclusion within tech and blockchain. So I was kind of thinking, I was kind of brainstorming, and I looked at my slide and it was just a bullet point and I was like, huh, like the blockchain space is a little bit just like this slide. It lacks color, it lacks diversity, and it lacks perspective. So I decided to leave this slide as is and just talk to you, because in the larger tech sector, the amazing organization NC-WIT, they state that 25% of employees in tech are women, right? But it's worse in crypto. One study from the Diversity in Blockchain Incorporated, they state that in 2019, only 10% of the Bitcoin community identified as female. And out of employees in the crypto space, only 4 to 6% were female. And you can only imagine how horrible those numbers are for women of color in the space or for other underrepresented minorities. So that brings me to she256 mission and also rewriting the codes mission. At she256, we fundamentally believe that we're so excited about blockchain kind of shaping our future financial and governance systems. And it's so crucial that the people building these systems are representative of the global and diverse populations that we intend to serve. So that's why we do the work that we do at she256. We're currently finalizing our a quantitative diversity in blockchain study to dive a little bit more into the numbers of women in blockchain, women in crypto, and everything related to kind of the more numeric aspects of that data. If Meta wants to talk about it or kind of shill it in the chat, she's welcome to, because I know she's working on that. And other than that, we do educational events like these. We do mentorship, community building, career development, all sorts of everything related to diversity and inclusion work in tech. I mean, in blockchain, but also in tech. Yeah, so that brings me to my next slide as we start to wrap things up. Our amazing beginner's guide to blockchain is a wonderful starting point if anyone had any questions or wanted to explore more in kind of the realm of blockchain. It's a huge, very deep space. So she256.org/guide will be your Bible. Our amazing Meta also put that together too with Women in Blockchain Boston. So that should be a wonderful resource. You're welcome to join our mailing list at she256.org. And also, same time next week, our Alexis Galba, who is one of our co-founders, and she also co-founded the Decentralized Options Protocol Open, she will be leading our hands-on intro to building DeFi and crypto protocols next week. So that's if you're interested in doing something a little bit more technical and hands-on, you actually want to actually build something. That's same time next week, March 2nd, 5 p.m. PST. Elaine, if you want to send out that link into the chat so people can register, that'd be amazing. Or I can do that too.
I think Virju already sent it.
Okay.
He beat us to it.
Amazing. Thank you, Virju. Okay, next slide. Okay, that's it. Yeah, thank you, everyone. If Elaine has anything else to add, I think we're done. And we're opening up kind of the floor for questions, anything that we didn't get time to answer. I'm glad that we have some time at the end to do that. Did you have anything else to add, Elaine?
sorry, I was like struggling to unmute myself. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate all the questions, and it was really great talking to everyone. Yeah, thanks for being here. I hope to see you guys next week as well. Alexis is super cool.
Yeah, Alexis is amazing. Can advocate for her.
Yes.
Okay, let's do questions.
I have a question. So currently everybody considering like crypto as investment. When do you see the point when we actually start using crypto as like a money rather than, because say if even though I own Bitcoin, I don't want to spend it today on like furniture, an apartment or something like that, because what if tomorrow it's going to rise again and I'll keep saving that. So apparently while it's rising and gaining its value, nobody will want to actually trade, like buy Pizza Hut or something with Bitcoins or other crypto.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, okay, so we've had examples in the past where especially countries with a lot of financial instability would be using crypto instead of like fiat money. For instance, oh my God, I forget what year, 2007. Sorry?
Venezuela's bolivar, their currency
Yes,
is like insanely hyperinflated to the point where they like mint like their unit of currency is like a millionth of a bolivar or something like that. It's insane.
So people in situations like those, we see a lot of like crypto usage on a daily basis. But yes, you're definitely correct. Like if like in the States, there is no like widespread, daily regular usage of crypto yet. But I'm sure in the future, it will happen soon. And yeah, there's a lot of really cool projects that are working on. Yeah, if Christy, if you want to talk more,
well,
I can see that you're very excited.
Yeah, I just had kind of 2 points to make here. One, I briefly mentioned stablecoins earlier. So stablecoins like USDC or DAI, they are specifically designed to stay stable. So DAI and USDC, for example, are designed to stay one-to-one with the US dollar. So for $1 US, I can trade for one DAI, and it's designed to stay stable that way. And so that's one way that people are using like cryptocurrency now as a actual like stable store of value. And I know there are other projects like Celo or Facebook's like Libra or Diem that are really trying to make these like payment systems more usable and accessible for people across the world, not just in the US, but across the world, and working with merchants and vendors and, just like the marketplace to make that a possibility.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Okay, let me scroll through the chat.
Oh yeah, I should probably do that too.
Yeah, so okay.
Someone asked, how do you start investing in Bitcoin? I feel like that might be a good one.
Do you want to take that, Elaine?
There you go. No, I will not take that.
Yeah, I feel like I've been asked that question a lot recently. So there are a couple of different platforms that you could use. Let's see. If you just really want to invest in Bitcoin, I'd probably recommend something like Coinbase or Gemini, just because it's a lot easier to onboard and it requires less like Bitcoin or like blockchain knowledge to get started. But if you're more interested in blockchain and Bitcoin and you really want to, or you're more excited about decentralization, you're more excited about Web3 and all these decentralized apps and being able to interact with them, I personally use a wallet called MetaMask. And that does require a little bit more knowledge of like your public and private keys to make sure that you don't lose your money. But it kind of is your gateway to interacting with all the decentralized apps out there. So short answer, Coinbase or Gemini if you just want to invest, but MetaMask if you are interested in more. If Elaine or Meta or anyone wanted to add to that or subtract from that.
No, I think that was good. Guys, I'm very salty about my recent crypto investments because I was not the smartest. But that's just a side note.
Also, side note, as an organization, I'm not the biggest fan of Coinbase. They're not the most inclusive or diverse-minded organization as a company. So yeah, but that being said, I still feel like it's one of the best kind of beginner-friendly crypto gateways. Okay, there are a lot of questions in the chat. Elaine, do you wanna just go through them?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
I was through some sort of like threading ability.
Oh, how do we get started mining? Okay, so mining is interesting. So I remember how I mentioned that mining requires a lot of computation power. There's a lot of people out there who like build factories, like fields. Gosh, what do we call those again? My mind is
mining farms.
Yes, like literal farms, like full of computers just with the purpose of mining. So there are really big key players out there. But in the earlier days, there would be people who would like link together like school computers. Like at Berkeley, I remember there was this one person who basically was using all the lab computers to mine Bitcoin. And then they got kicked off, I think. But yeah, as long as you have a lot of computation power, there's multiple ways you could try to mine, like search up mining pools. And sorry, my dog wanted to go out of my room. But yeah, so I guess if you wanted to get started mining, you can join a mining pool, search what that's about, or you could start your own farm. It's a lot of money, but it can be done.
That's actually one. Sorry, go for it.
Is it even profitable? Because your electricity bill is gonna be like super high probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why like people who run mining farms typically have access to very, very efficient computers. I think ASICs are the name of the little chips used to mine Bitcoin. And they're like specifically designed to mine Bitcoin. And so honestly, I think if you want to run your own node like today, I think it's pretty hard to do that just because it takes an insane amount of energy and power just to do that. But if you wanted to do that maybe like 10 years ago, you definitely could have just at home. But Elaine mentioned if you do actually want to mine, there are a lot of options now to kind of pool your resources in a mining pool. And so you're able to earn a percentage of the kind of profits that mining pool makes.
Great question.
Yes. Going back to Christy on the diversity and inclusion, I'm curious if you would see a gap in the knowledge of like financial education, especially in developing country, if Bitcoin start becoming or cryptocurrency is becoming a thing, and how do you see those people in like those countries picking up the knowledge, or do you see there might be a gap and it will be an issue to fix? Let me know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a fantastic question. And that's definitely something that we're definitely working on right now. Can I actually invite Meta to talk about this and answer this question? She works at Cello and she can explain that if she wants to.
Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was like replying to some other questions. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. I was on the topic of diversity and inclusion, and if cryptocurrency picked up and it become like a widespread, do you see that there might be a gap in terms of people in developing country, especially if they're not, very good with technology yet? Or yeah, do you see that? Do you see this issue coming up? And then how? Yeah, I'll leave it as that.
Yeah, honestly, that's a great question. And I think about this all the time because my day job is working on the Cello protocol, like Christy mentioned, and our main target markets are like emerging markets like Latin America, Africa, Pacific Islands, like areas like that where currencies are super volatile, interest rates are high, remittances are high, or just in general, like the current economic financial system is not serving the population. And so those are some of like the most vulnerable populations. And so a lot of what we have to do is like keep in mind how we can serve those people without like, I guess, like repeating some of the mistakes of our current systems. I don't know if this can be answered honestly in like one question, but I think what's cool is that there's a lot of different projects and approaches that are kind of researching these things right now and trying to create completely different monetary systems than the ones that we have in place today. And I think these are all experiments. And I think through experimenting and through usage, we'll find out like which ones make the most sense for the economies that we're trying to help. In the end, though, I think the best thing you can do is user research in those places. I think a lot of what the issues I see in startups trying to work in like the emerging market space, not even just crypto, just in general, is that they're kind of like taking a Western approach to new economies and like not necessarily like, I don't know, I guess like respecting what those people want. And so in the end, I feel like if you talk to those users and see what they really need, they can be the ones that like decide if these like new assets like make sense for them. And then I think Christy mentioned stable coins as well. I think those are a great way for, I guess, like less disparity to happen. But yeah, sorry, that was like a super convoluted response, but I'm super interested in like chatting about this. So if you want to have like a one-on-one dialogue, I'm happy to on something like Twitter.
Okay, thank you.
Are you reading questions from the chat? Because I want to look back to the investment and volatility of cryptos. Can you explain all this like sudden moves? And do you expect in the nearest future it being like more or less stable?
I can add 1 cent of my opinion. Definitely do not just go by what I'm saying, because I am in no regards an expert in any way in this type of way in this field. But remember, I think you asked. Maybe ask this question again next week. I think Alexis would have a lot more, in-depth opinion on this. But I think you were the one who asked about, if crypto is going to get adopted on a more regular basis, right?
Yeah, because it cannot be adopted for now because it's so volatile that you don't know like what it's going to be tomorrow.
That's true. But I think that it could go both ways. I think that's a reason why it could be so volatile as well, because we don't have regular usage and people are like putting in money into crypto just as pure investments, which is why, it would follow along, which is why it could be so volatile, because it's going by like public opinion and things like that. But yeah, that's like a part of my own opinion. Chrissy, do you want to add your opinion as well?
I don't have too much to add because I feel like that's definitely a question that a lot of us now are still trying to figure out, because all of these transactions are anonymous, right? So you don't know like what is driving these trends or like kind of the activity behind Bitcoin. That being said, Bitcoin on a more economic level is a fixed supply currency, which means that only like, I don't remember what the exact number was, but only a fixed number of Bitcoin can ever be minted, like ever. And that's just kind of how it is designed. It's almost similar to the gold standard. And because you have almost like a fixed supply on an economic level, that means your currency is inelastic, which means it's if supply changes a little bit, that price will fluctuate more. And so that's why the United States switched off of the gold standard into infinite printing fiat money. But that kind of like the economic design of Bitcoin might be one reason for why it is so volatile. My personal opinion was that Bitcoin wasn't designed to be stable, but I'm also not an expert here, so don't take my word as law. I know there are projects out there like Ampleforth, which they're basically trying to build a better Bitcoin. They are a elastic currency rather than inelastic currency, which means that they're less kind of going to be like volatile just due to the currency design, the economic design. But that's also why we have stable coins that are designed to be stable. I don't know if they answered the question at all, but
yeah, that's a good explanation.
Great question, by the way. That's definitely very relevant.
maybe more of a personal, how did you start your way into like crypto research and everything? And maybe I missed in the beginning, is your current job related to crypto?
I can go first. So I got into crypto my freshman year of college just because someone randomly told me about blockchain, and then I joined an org called Blockchain at Berkeley, where I met, all the founders of she256, and I've been with them since the launch there. So yeah, that was kind of how I got into blockchain. Literally just super randomly because someone just told me what it was, like, on the street. And my current job is not related to blockchain, but I'm like super interested in it. So like maybe I'll work for a blockchain company. I'm still in school, so yeah.
Yeah, kind of similarly. I didn't really know what blockchain was like at all. Like I joined she256 before knowing what blockchain was, because just I was super passionate about diversity work. But kind of through she256 and the team members and just kind of spending time on crypto Twitter and in the blockchain space, you slowly start to learn a little bit more about the terminology and just like why people are excited about what they are. And then I've been in crypto since November 2019, which is like a year and 3 months now, which is crazy. Oh my goodness, do you guys hear these notifications? Sorry, that is so annoying. And I've just kind of like spent time in the space and on crypto Twitter and around people who are interested in crypto. And that's kind of helped me kind of get up to speed. So I'm currently also learning a lot right now. I'm also a student at Berkeley, at Pantera Capital, doing some like research and writing. And that's just like me learning as much as I can in a short amount of time. But yeah.
I can also elaborate a little bit more. I'm still a newbie. I started out by joining blockchain at Columbia, and I didn't know anything. And afterwards, like I have a lot to learn. What helped me the most was our beginner's guide, to be honest. After Meta published it, I went through every material, and I think that was the best thing ever. It's so easy. It's so easy to follow. You see different resources, you can watch videos, you can read. It's amazing. So that helped me a lot. And now like I try to do like more research around it, like try just like being on Twitter, I think helps a lot. And just like looking out for some news, like keeping an open eye, like talking to people. Those are my suggestions.
Yeah, I think in crypto, like crypto Twitter is huge for just being like the central forum for what's going on. So any recommended Twitter accounts to follow, you guys? You could start with the she256 Twitter. That's here, let me just type it in the chat. But some crypto influencers, off the top of my head, please help me guys, the she256 team. But I'm thinking people like
Elon Musk, he influences definitely.
I don't know if I count Elon Musk as a crypto person, but absolutely. Frick, now that you asked me, I can't come up with people off the top of my head, but
Maybe we should do this like publicly. We could like try to come
what?
up with a list of correct people to follow on Twitter.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Okay, did anybody have any more questions? It looks like we have like 30 people here, so if anybody has questions that they're waiting to be asked, here's your chance to ask your own question now. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And we'll also be answering questions at next week's workshop too. And you can also always reach out at she256 on our Twitter, or at our email address, or really anywhere that you find us.
Guys, thank you so much. You guys were amazing. And thank you, team, for helping answering questions and all that. Wait, also creds to Burju. Shout out to her. She's the one who brought this event to life. So
yeah. Thanks to the Rewriting the Code team for partnering with us to make this happen for RTC and everyone else. We love RTC.
Yeah, I joined you guys like a week ago, and you guys are actually amazing.
Someone said I came
It's actually
late.
such an active community.
Yeah, we love RTC. Where can I see the video after this, please? Someone said, asked where this would be recorded. We'll probably be sending an email out to all the attendees, and we'll also be posting this on Twitter and on YouTube and on all our socials. So just keep an eye out.
And also as a side note, if you came from like somewhere else other than the RTC mailing list, join RTC too. I'm trying to find a link to their website right now,
Okay.
but I think it's too late.
Rewritingthecode.org.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're amazing.
Okay.
Okay, amazing. Then if there are no more questions, Elaine, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I guess I can wrap up real quick and repeat myself saying thank you. Really, thank you guys. It was great talking to y'all. Thanks for all the questions. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it from at least our team's side. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. And see you guys next week because Alexis is really amazing. She's the best at explaining things. It's insane. Yeah.
She's killer.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.